Hey, it's all about quality, not about quantity. Right? Let's get back to another round of Brewsday Tuesday with DreZ and Big Nate.
There's that sound. Brewsday Tuesday continuing on. Brought to you by the Cellar Restaurant and Six-Pack Store, downtown Blacksburg. Great place to go. Oh, pardon me. And get some.
Bless you.
And get some beers better than the first round we drank. We almost finished off the ice. What were your thoughts about the Beast? I know you said you'd never had any of that stuff before.
I kind of mirror your thoughts on it, and yours came after the fact. Mine came before the fact. It's not the worst thing I've ever drank. Not the best, but I could see why.
Are you saying it's not Milwaukee's best?
If I can confidently say that if I were in a position where I had to drink that every day, or I was, drinking it every day, I would just forego.
Yeah, I was talking. I can't quite remember, but I think that 15-pack of Beast was like, $6.99 or something ridiculous.
That's a hell of a statement.
Or maybe it was $9. I don't know. I don't remember, but I know it was cheaper at the time that we were. It was the go-to, and of course the ice. With the bigger ABV, that was for if you had an extra $1 to spend for the more expensive pack. But hey, you get almost 50% more ABV. So really, if you're just trying to drink to get drunk, that was the way to do it.
Being
Economist?
Being wise with your money is what we're gonna call it. I can't say that word.
I don't know. You didn't really have a chance. You didn't have a choice at that stage in our lives. However, we'll fast forward a little bit and get to more so the where we discovered our love for craft beer, and no pun intended on that one. But I did just pop the love from Starr, which is of course a wheat beer, 5.1%. I know they must have recently redid their kind of logo and style. This is love in a can. This might actually be the first one I've had in a can. I remember always it came in glass bottles or on tap, which would have been the instance of when I first tried it. But we're putting the cart before the horse. What about you? What'd you pop over there? What was your first craft beer that you got?
I'm gonna go ahead and bury the lead here. This is one of my favorite beers of all time. It's Bell's Two-Hearted Ale. There was a period here recently where we couldn't get this in Virginia. I'm so glad it's back. But yeah, this was my very first craft beer.
That's a damn good first.
If we've got time for a story, I've actually got one.
Hold on.
Well,
yep, we do. We do have time. Yeah.
So this beer, for the very first time, I was 16. We were in Cincinnati for a ball game. The Cincinnati Reds were taking on the Pittsburgh Pirates. And we were under a bridge in downtown Cincinnati tailgating because that's where we were told to park. And
what year was this?
It would have been the 2006, 2007 season.
Okay, I was just thinking, because I remember we just had Matt Anthony on, and he was talking about how around that era there was like no good craft beer, and now Cincinnati's like huge for craft beer.
Yeah.
I guess that probably doesn't have much to do with the story, but
we were also traveling cross country at that point.
Oh,
as a family in a minivan, and we stopped off to see the Reds take on the Pirates. I don't know if we had brought the beer from another state or not. I can't confirm any of that, nor can I deny any of that. But I remember I was only 16 or 17 at the time.
Oh,
and we're making brats under a bridge. Stepdad's like, here, have a beer. You've earned the right. And the police walk up, kind of just doing patrol around the area, around the Great American Ballpark.
A lot of people tailgating. It's not just you guys under a bridge.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
everybody's there
like
for the game. Okay.
They definitely stopped by and were like, hey, if you got any leftover brats, we'll be back around in about 15 minutes.
The cops said that?
Meanwhile, I'm sitting here well underage, just having a beer. They did show back up, and they did grab some brats.
Well, they're not going to hassle you at that point, right? If you're
there
getting free food.
There was no hassle. And to me, that has always been the greatest experience, and it's just something that's always been near and dear to my heart. And Bell's is also
it's great.
Very great at what they do.
That's such a good, solid go-to beer, which is interesting to me, though. Like, if that was your first craft beer experience, Because I could be wrong, but I thought that you weren't really an IPA guy. You would think that would put you down the aisle, because to have that good of an IPA and that good of a craft beer experience, you would think that would just be what you've been that dragon you've been chasing ever since. Like just bigger, better, awesome IPAs and
All right.
more
I mean,
fun.
if you want to know the real truth of the matter is, to me, Bell's Two Hearted is the perfect IPA.
Oh, so it's never been topped.
Yeah. So it's not worth chasing that dragon. Let's chase other dragons.
That's fair though. Bell's is such a good IPA. And what's the ABV on that again? It's
7.2?
Yeah, 7.2. Like that's just the perfect.
7.0.
Yeah. So like it's got the ABV. It's that is a really really.
And I mean, if you can
beer.
make a label this god awful, why does it have a fish on it? I don't know, but there's a reason it's a staple.
You would think that you would know if this is your jam. Like, is the Two Hearted? Is that do they have two hearts or something? Whatever that fish
They don't.
is or something.
That was my thought. Is maybe it's a bass,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't have two hearts.
Oh, I feel like most don't. Yeah, I don't know.
There's no.
You haven't
and
looked
you'll,
into
you'll
it
run into it
of
like
why
the
it's called Two Hearted?
Oberon. That's a really weird one too. It's just a sunflower, like a hand drawn sunflower.
Mm-hmm.
I think whoever's in charge of their graphic design is just given money for no reason.
Yeah. No, but that's solid. I mean, Bell's is great, and yeah, that's a great story. So for me, Starr Hill's The Love, not as really that cool of a story. It just makes sense that it's a wheat beer, so it's one of those just kind of introductory beers. Because I have alluded to in the first round, I basically just swore off beer for many years, and I can't quite remember what year it was, but working at the radio station, I started working here in 2007 when I still was not drinking beer. But at some point, through the years, we go out to beer festivals, we do remotes there, we sponsor and do those tie-ins. At some beer festival, I want to say it was New River Brew Fest over at Nesselrod, one of those years that we were there. Somebody finally twisted my arm and they got me to try the Love from Starr Hill. And I took a sip and I was like, that's actually palatable. I feel like I can actually drink a beer now after I haven't been able to for the last 6 years or so. And the Love was the first full beer that I drank since that scenario back in whatever year that might have been. I can't remember. What did I say? 2004. So from 2004 to this probably was, if I had to guess, 2010. So yeah, probably about a 6-year gap where I just didn't drink beer at all.
So
I could be wrong, but I can't remember. Yeah,
around that. I have 2 questions to follow this up. First, have you ever beer bonged Love?
I haven't done a beer bong since that incident in 2004. I have not.
Okay, well, that might be a Brewsday Tuesday off the air trial.
No, on the air. No, we should probably. In fact, we still got some of this ice sitting over here. I could just try it for old time's sake. I could give it a whirl. In fact, I even thought about it. I was just like, man, if I had a beer bong, I would bring it in for today's show. But I definitely do not still own a beer bong.
We've both reached points in our lives where we don't have those. Secondly, so this one's interesting for me. I've heard a lot of people segue into craft beer with wheatier beers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for instance, the only thing my wife drinks, who doesn't drink beer at all, is like the Vienna Lager, which kind of has a wheatier taste to it. So would you ever hand someone like something like that versus an IPA? Because I think IPAs are the greatest segue.
You talking about for a starter?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would. I wouldn't start with an IPA because I feel like those. I mean, if they're already drinking beer, like when you had yours, did you already were you already drinking Natty Light and stuff? You already drank beer. See, you want to find something like, honestly, nowadays, like case in point with my wife, she doesn't like beer and stuff, but you get them in with like the sours and stuff. That's what I have found because they don't taste like beer.
Yeah.
You want to find the least beeriest beer and hook them with that and then get them used to it, trying other ones. And then eventually you'll be like, oh, we'll try this one. and then maybe this one, and then you can finally get them into like beer.
So you're saying like IPA is being thrown into the deep end?
I think because in my mind, an IPA is the epitome of like craft beer, and I feel like exactly. That's like that's really going hard off the bat. I mean, of course, there's there's obviously, exceptions to every rule. There's certain IPAs that are just phenomenal that even like my wife and stuff, like when you go to the Veil and stuff, like their triples and like those are a whole different level gnarliness. But if you're talking about, I mean, Bell's is good, but it's definitely an IPA. That's a great example of what an IPA should be. And I feel like most people that aren't into beer would not want to drink that.
All right. That's fair. Like my family kind of had a history of just throwing me in the deep end to see what would happen. So naturally, IPA would have been my first craft beer. And like I said, I've never looked back. To me, this is the perfect IPA. I can live with this. Perfect
IPA or perfect craft beer? Like, I mean, so I know that. Do you have a favorite style?
I haven't tried every craft beer.
Well, okay.
Because I mean, there's a lot of like ridiculous experimental categories out there. Yeah, I think Bell's Two Hearted right now, given what I've tried, this is the perfect craft beer.
All right, that's fair, and that's great because that is one of those ones where you can just go and buy a 6-pack like you did earlier. Like, it's nice to know and think about that your favorite beer that is that go-to and that readily available.
Yeah, we only needed one. I bought 6.
Yeah, I did a variety pack to get the love and some other, and I grabbed a Two Hearted just to be safe, but they're already there, so that's good. But yeah, man. So that's what it was. Yeah, my craft beer story is not as entertaining or ridiculous as my actual first beer story, but yeah, it's funny. I had that, and then I fell in love with craft beer.
How often do you pull out the love?
None.
Jesus.
Very few and far between. Like, this is the first love. I mean, I guess I could check Untapped, actually.
So yeah, like now that you've kind of really broadened your horizons,
I could pretty much
for you.
I can look and see the last time, because I'm pretty good about untapping my beers. So I would say this will give us a pretty good example of when the last time I had the love was, which would have been here in studio, and of course it would have been, I would imagine maybe I would have thought this would have been for like a Valentine's
show.
Day. But no, April 7th, 2016.
Oh, we celebrated Valentine's late that year.
Yeah, it was a belated Valentine. No, I think what it was we must have bought a 6-pack because February 16th, 2016. So we must have had a 6-pack, and I was still drinking them here in the station. Just clean the house. So yeah, that must have been what it was. It's been so there you go. It's been quite a while. Because when it comes down to it, like, I mean, and this is not a bad beer, and I'll go ahead and untap it. I mean, it's my first love, my first craft love. I mean, it's a great example of a wheat beer too. When you really boil it down, I mean, it's just it's smooth. It's got the lacing that you would expect, which isn't much when it comes to the wheat beers and whatnot. But it's one of those light, refreshing beers that when you're at a beer festival and you're finally trying a beer and enjoying good music, you're going to fall in, well, love. I know I've used that pun too much, but I'll take another sip. I'm sure my opinion of it has changed over the years. Hopefully the recipe hasn't. I know that the ownership and distribution and all that good stuff has since I first fell in love with it, but it's still a good beer. I'd say it's an easy 4. It's an easy 4. And but no, I don't readily drink it because I'm one of those guys that if I'm ever going to the beer store, I'm always looking for stuff I haven't had before. I always want to try new stuff because, like you said, there's so many beers out there. Right. That being said, when you find something good like a Bell's Two Hearted, no problem having a good old 6-pack of that on standby. But
Okay, so speaking on that, I'm gonna let you in on a little secret that I had. we're past the statute of limitations. So
Oh boy, did you steal one
there-
of those beers
there-
from my fridge in 2016?
no, I did not. However, there was a time frame where you couldn't get Bell's Two Hearted in Virginia. Distribution issues, whatever. That's on their end, not mine. Southern Exposure, where I'm going to be at this Saturday,
Yeah.
10 p.m. to midnight.
Shout out.
Part of my ritual, the trip back from Southern Exposure, was stopping at that Sheets across the street to bring back a 6-pack of Bell's Two Hearted
Because they would
Ale.
still have it in West
Because
Virginia.
West Virginia still had the licensing. It is a beer that is that important to me, is that I was trying to sneak it back here to the state of Virginia, and thankfully we've got it back, and I don't have to go all that way. Usually, I can just go
maybe
to the store
just
down the street.
out of tradition, you might
Yeah,
need to do it. Plus, it's good to get a snack, for
I'm
the road
so
for the
conditioned
drive
that
back.
I've got to grab it, but so we'll see what happens. But yeah, Bell's Two Hearted, very important to me. Something that I drink at least once a month. I mean, you're gonna be shocked. It's a 5.
Oh, yeah. That's fair. No, that's a fair rating for that beer. That is one of the solid go-tos in the craft community. I think a lot of people would probably agree with you on that one. That's a wrap for this week. Next week, well, finally, I mean, I feel like it's been forever ago since I did it, but I did go to Hawaii.
This is true.
I did bring back beer.
Yes,
Would you like to try some of the Hawaiian beers that exist?
preferably.
Okay.
I always want to take a ride.
All right. Well, we'll finally get around to drinking those Hawaiian beers. They've been sitting patiently waiting to be consumed. So I think that's going to be the rip. And of course, I can tell you a little bit about Hawaii and all the awesomeness that comes with visiting.
I have a
our
lot to
50th
learn
state.
because everything I've ever learned about Hawaii comes from Disney movies.
All right. Well, that will be a topic of conversation on the next Brewsday Tuesday. Right now, we'll take a quick break. We'll get back with the tunes right here on 105.3 The Bear. Stick around.